The last few years of Ozzy's life were a battle against time and his failing body. The Parkinson's disease, diagnosed in 2019 but likely affecting him for years before, made simple tasks nearly impossible. His hands shook constantly. His balance was so bad that he needed help walking. His speech became slurred and difficult to understand. But the worst part was losing his independence. The man who had commanded stages in front of 100,000 people now needed help getting dressed. He couldn't drive anymore. Simple things like eating or drinking became challenges. Sharon had to hire full-time nurses to help with his daily care. The spinal surgeries were meant to help, but they seemed to make things worse. He had operation after operation, each one more painful than the last. The doctors kept promising improvement, but Ozzy felt weaker after each surgery. His body was covered in scars from all the procedures. In 2023, the hardest decision of his life came. He announced that he was retiring from touring. His body simply couldn't handle the stress of live performances anymore. For a man who lived to perform, this felt like a death sentence. Performing was his identity, his reason for existing. Fans around the world were heartbroken. Many had been waiting years to see him one more time. Tickets for his canceled shows were in such high demand that some were selling for thousands of dollars. People wanted one last chance to see the Prince of Darkness in action. But Ozzy wasn't ready to give up completely. When Black Sabbath approached him in early 2025 about one final reunion show, he couldn't say no. All four original members, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, and Ozzy, performing together for the first time in 20 years. The planning for the show was intense and emotional. Ozzy could barely walk, let alone perform a full concert. His doctors warned that the stress might kill him. His family begged him to reconsider, but Ozzy was determined to say goodbye to his fans properly, no matter what it cost him. The show was scheduled for July 5th, 2025, at Villa Park Stadium in Birmingham, the city where it all began. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. This was coming full circle, back to where four working-class kids had started their impossible dream. Tickets sold out in literally minutes. The demand was so overwhelming that the website crashed. Fans from around the world flew to Birmingham for what everyone knew would be the last time they would see Ozzy perform. Hotels were booked solid. The entire city was buzzing with excitement and sadness. Behind the scenes, preparations were unlike anything for a normal concert. Ozzy could only perform sitting down, so they built him a special throne that looked like something from a Gothic castle. His voice was weaker than before, so they adjusted the sound system to support him. The set list had to be shortened because his stamina was limited. Medical staff were on standby throughout the planning process. Oxygen tanks were kept nearby in case he had trouble breathing. Paramedics were stationed just off stage. Everyone knew this was incredibly risky for someone in Ozzy's condition. The other band members were dealing with their own age-related issues. Tony Iommi, 77, had battled lymphoma and could only play for short periods. Geezer Butler, 76, had arthritis in his fingers. Bill Ward, 77, had heart problems, and Ozzy Osbourne's untold story that shocked Black Sabbath fans. In July 2025, Ozzy Osbourne died at age 76, just 17 days after his final concert. But what happened in those last weeks shocked everyone who knew him. This is the untold story that Black Sabbath fans never heard. The secret he kept. Ozzy knew he was dying. Not just sick, dying. The Parkinson's disease, the spinal surgeries, the years of damage had caught up with him, but he made a choice that stunned his family and bandmates. He decided to perform one last time, no matter what it cost him. Sharon Osbourne later revealed that doctors told them Ozzy had weeks, maybe months. His heart was failing. His body was shutting down. But when Black Sabbath offered him the chance to reunite for one final show, he said yes without hesitation. The struggle years, a working-class kid's dream. John Michael Osbourne was born December 3, 1948, in Birmingham, England. His dad, Jack Osbourne, worked long hours at a tool factory called GEC. His mom, Lillian, worked at a car parts plant during World War II and then cleaned houses for wealthy families. They lived in a tiny terraced house at 14 Lodge Road in Aston, one of Birmingham's poorest neighborhoods. The house had no central heating, just a coal fire in one room. In winter, ice would form on the inside of the windows. The toilet was outside in the backyard, which meant walking through snow and rain just to use the bathroom. 6 people lived in that small house: Ozzy, his parents, his sister Jean, and his brothers Paul and Tony. Ozzy struggled terribly in school. He had dyslexia, but nobody knew what that was in the 1950s. Teachers just thought he was lazy or stupid. He couldn't read properly. Numbers made no sense to him. Other kids laughed when he tried to read out loud. The teacher would hit him with a ruler when he got answers wrong. He was small for his age and got picked on constantly. Bigger boys would steal his lunch money. They called him names and pushed him around. He felt like everyone was against him. School was a nightmare that he had to live through every single day. At 15, he couldn't take it anymore. He dropped out and took the first job he could find at a slaughterhouse in Birmingham. Every morning at 6 a.m., he would put on blood-stained clothes and spend 8 hours killing pigs and cows. The smell was horrible. Blood was everywhere. The screaming of the animals haunted him. His job was to clean up after the killing. He would mop blood off the floors and walls. He would carry away buckets of animal parts. The smell of death followed him home every night. His clothes reeked, no matter how much his mother washed them. But the job paid £3 a week, and his family needed the money. He tried other jobs when he couldn't stand the slaughterhouse anymore. He spent months testing car horns at the Lucas factory, 8 hours a day of listening to loud honking sounds. The noise gave him headaches, but he needed the work. Later, he moved heavy boxes in a warehouse, lifting and carrying until his back ached. Every job was miserable, but he had no choice. His family was poor, and everyone had to work. His father came home exhausted from the tool factory. His mother cleaned other people's houses because they needed extra money. There was never enough food, never enough heat, never enough of anything. The only escape was music. When he heard the Beatles' "She Loves You" on the radio in 1963, something changed inside him. The melody made him feel happy for the first time in years. John Lennon's voice gave him chills. He realized that music could transport you somewhere else, away from all the pain and struggle. He started hanging around local clubs, watching bands play. He would stand in the back, studying how the singers moved, how they connected with the crowd. He dreamed of being up on that stage, making people feel the way the Beatles made him feel. But it seemed impossible. He couldn't read music. He had no training. He was just a poor kid from the worst part of Birmingham. In 1967, everything changed. He saw an ad posted on the wall of Ringway Music Shop in Birmingham. "Ozzy Zig needs gig, has own PA." It was his ad, desperate for any chance to sing. 3 guys called him: Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward. They had a band called Polka Tulk Blues Band, and they needed a singer. Ozzy couldn't sing very well, but he had something the others recognized: hunger. He wanted it more than anything. They gave him a chance, and he grabbed it with both hands. They practiced in a freezing basement, sharing one microphone between 4 guys. None of them had proper equipment or nice instruments, but they had dreams and determination. They changed their name to Earth, then to Black Sabbath. They practiced every day after work, sometimes until 2 in the morning. Their fingers would be numb from the cold, but they kept playing. They knew this was their only chance to escape the factory jobs and dead-end life that Birmingham offered working-class kids. The breakthrough: creating heavy metal. Black Sabbath didn't plan to invent heavy metal. They were just 4 working-class kids trying to make it in music. But what they created changed everything and shocked the music world. The breakthrough came from an accident. Tony Iommi had been working at a sheet metal factory when he was 17. On his last day of work, the day before he was supposed to join a band, a machine crushed the tips of the middle and ring fingers on his right hand. The doctor said he would never play guitar again. Most people would have given up. Tony didn't. He made fake fingertips out of plastic bottles and leather. The injury forced him to tune his guitar down, making it easier to press the strings. This gave Black Sabbath their signature heavy, dark sound that nobody had heard before. Geezer Butler brought the horror elements. He was obsessed with scary movies, black magic, and the occult. While other bands sang about love and flowers, Geezer wrote lyrics about death, war, and evil. His bass lines were darker and heavier than anything in popular music. Bill Ward's drumming was thunderous. He hit the drums harder than anyone else, creating a sound like cannons going off. Combined with Tony's heavy guitar and Geezer's dark bass, it created something completely new. Music that was scary and beautiful at the same time. But it was Ozzy's voice that made it all work. His natural singing voice was actually quite beautiful. He was a tenor with good range. But when he sang over Black Sabbath's heavy music, something magical happened. His voice became an otherworldly wail that sent chills down people's spines. Their first real breakthrough came at a club called the Star Club in Hamburg, Germany. The audience went crazy for their heavy sound. People had never heard anything like it. Some were scared, others were mesmerized. But nobody was indifferent. When they returned to Birmingham, word spread quickly. Their local shows started selling out. Record companies began paying attention. In 1969, they signed with Vertigo Records and started recording their first album. The recording sessions were intense. They had no money for fancy studios, so they recorded in a small, cold room. But the rough conditions actually helped their sound. The music sounded raw and powerful, like it was coming from deep underground. Their first album, Black Sabbath, came out in February 1970 on a Friday the 13th, a date they chose on purpose. Critics were horrified. They called it noise, devil music, and a threat to society. Religious groups protested. Radio stations refused to play it, but young people loved it. The album went to number 8 in Britain and started climbing charts around the world. Kids who felt angry and alienated finally had music that spoke to them. Black Sabbath wasn't singing about holding hands in sunshine. They were singing about the real world of pain and struggle. The success was overwhelming. Just months earlier, they were factory workers and meat packers. Now they were rock stars, but they had no idea how to handle fame, money, or the music business. They were about to learn some very hard lessons. The Rise, Prince of Darkness. The 1970s were Black Sabbath's golden years, but they were also the beginning of Ozzy's descent into darkness. The band made album after album of perfect heavy metal music. Master of Reality, Vulner 4, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, each one pushing the boundaries further. Paranoid, released just 6 months after their debut, made them superstars. The title track became an anthem for angry teenagers around the world. Iron Man told the story of a time traveler who sees the apocalypse and tries to warn humanity. War Pigs was a brutal attack on politicians who send young men to die in wars. These weren't just songs, they were manifestos. Ozzy's stage shows became the stuff of legend. He discovered that shocking behavior got attention, so he kept pushing further. The bat-biting incident at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Des Moines, Iowa, on January 20th, 1982, became his most famous moment. A fan had thrown what Ozzy thought was a rubber bat onto the stage. Without thinking, he bit its head off. The bat was real and bit him back. He had to get rabies shots immediately, but the bat was nothing compared to his other stunts. He once urinated on the Alamo in San Antonio while wearing one of Sharon's dresses. He was arrested and banned from the city for years. At another show, he bit the head off a dove during a record company meeting, spitting blood all over horrified executives. These antics made him more famous, but they also made him a target. Christian groups called him the devil. Politicians blamed him for corrupting youth. Parents banned his records from their homes. The more people attacked him, the more outrageous he became. Behind the scenes, things were falling apart. Ozzy was drinking a bottle of whiskey every day, plus cocaine, pills, and anything else he could find. He thought the drugs made him more creative, but they were actually destroying him. He couldn't remember lyrics during shows. Sometimes he couldn't even stand up. The other band members watched in horror as their friends self-destructed. Tony Iommi tried to limit Ozzy's drinking before shows, but Ozzy would sneak bottles into his room. Geezer Butler begged him to get help, but Ozzy wasn't ready to listen. Bill Ward, who had his own drinking problems, couldn't help because he was struggling too. Their manager at the time didn't help matters. He encouraged the wild behavior because it sold records and concert tickets. The crazier Ozzy got, the more money everyone made. Nobody was looking out for Ozzy's health or well-being. The pressure of fame was enormous. Millions of fans expected them to be perfect. Record companies demanded hit after hit. Concert promoters wanted bigger and more outrageous shows. There was no time to rest, no time to think, no time to realize how far down the rabbit hole they had gone. By 1975, Black Sabbath was selling millions of albums and playing to sold-out arenas around the world. But the music was starting to suffer. Albums took longer to record because band members were too high to work effectively. Songs became less focused. The magic that created their early masterpieces was getting lost in a haze of drugs and alcohol. Ozzy's personal relationships were disasters. He went through girlfriends quickly, often treating them badly when he was drunk or high. He lost touch with his family back in Birmingham. His old friends didn't recognize the person he had become. Fame had given him everything he thought he wanted, but it was taking away everything that actually mattered. Conflicts and hardships. The firing. In 1979, Black Sabbath fired Ozzy. After 11 years together, his bandmates couldn't take it anymore. He was too unreliable, too messed up on drugs, too difficult to work with. Ozzy was devastated. Black Sabbath was his whole life. Without the band, who was he? Just a working-class kid from Birmingham with no education and no skills except singing. He went home to his apartment and locked himself inside. He had £96,000 from his share of the band, and he spent it all on cocaine and alcohol. He planned to kill himself when the money ran out. His girlfriend at the time left him. His friends stopped calling. Even his family was worried he might not survive. Ozzy later said this was the lowest point of his entire life. But Don Arden, a music manager, saw potential in Ozzy. Arden's daughter Sharon became Ozzy's manager. She was tough and smart, and she believed in him when nobody else did. Sharon got him into rehab. She helped him put together a new band. She found Randy Rhoads, a brilliant guitarist who became Ozzy's best friend and musical partner. Reinvention, solo success. Ozzy's first solo album, Blizzard of Oz, came out in 1980. It was better than anything he had done with Black Sabbath. Songs like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley showed a new side of his talent. The album was a huge hit. Ozzy proved he didn't need Black Sabbath to be successful. He could be a star on his own. Randy Rhoads' guitar playing made the music even better than before, but tragedy struck in 1982. Randy Rhoads was killed in a plane crash during a tour. He was only 25 years old. Ozzy was heartbroken. He had lost his best friend and musical partner. Despite the tragedy, Ozzy kept making music. He released album after album through the 1980s and 1990s. He became even more famous as a solo artist than he had been with Black Sabbath. In 1982, he married Sharon Osbourne. She became not just his wife, but his manager, his best friend, and the person who saved his life many times over. Together, they had 3 children, Amy, Kelly, and Jack. The 1990s brought a new kind of fame. Ozzy created Ozzfest, a traveling music festival that became hugely popular. He was no longer just a musician. He was a brand, a business empire. In 2002, something unexpected happened. MTV launched a reality show called The Osbournes. It followed Ozzy, Sharon, and their teenage kids Kelly and Jack around their Beverly Hills mansion. The show was a huge hit. Millions of people watched every week to see Ozzy trying to work the TV remote or walking into glass doors. He wasn't the scary Prince of Darkness anymore. He was a confused but lovable dad. The Osbournes ran for 4 seasons and made the family even more famous. Kelly and Jack became celebrities. Sharon became a talk show host. Ozzy showed the world that rock stars could be regular people too. But the show also revealed Ozzy's health problems. Viewers could see that something was wrong. He moved slowly and seemed confused. His hands shook. His speech was slurred. In 2019, doctors told him he had Parkinson's disease. This explained many of his symptoms. The disease affects movement and speech. There's no cure, and it gets worse over time. Final years? The long goodbye. The last few years of Ozzy's life were difficult. The Parkinson's disease made it hard for him to walk or stand. He had multiple spinal surgeries that left him in constant pain. In 2023, he announced that he was retiring from touring. His body couldn't handle the stress of live performances anymore. Fans around the world were heartbroken. Many thought they would never see him perform again. But in early 2025, Black Sabbath made a surprising announcement. They were reuniting for one final show in Birmingham, their hometown. All 4 original members would perform together for the first time in 20 years. Ozzy was excited, but scared. He could barely walk, let alone perform a full concert. His doctors were worried that the stress might kill him, but Ozzy was determined to say goodbye to his fans properly. The show was scheduled for July 5th, 2025 at Villa Park Stadium. Tickets sold out in minutes. Fans from around the world flew to Birmingham for what everyone knew would be the last time they would see Ozzy perform. Behind the scenes, preparations were intense. Ozzy could only perform sitting down. His voice was weaker than before. The band had to change their songs to accommodate his limitations. But on July 5th, magic happened. Despite being seated on a throne, Ozzy delivered a powerful performance. His voice was still recognizable. The crowd of 42,000 people sang along to every word. Black Sabbath played 4 songs: War Pigs, NIB, Iron Man, and Paranoid. It was perfect, a celebration of their legacy and a proper goodbye to their fans. The concert was also a charity event. All proceeds went to Parkinson's research, Birmingham Children's Hospital, and a local children's hospice. Even in his final performance, Ozzy was thinking of others. After the show, Ozzy was exhausted but happy. He had accomplished what he set out to do. He had said goodbye to his fans and closed this chapter of his life with dignity. The shocking end. What fans didn't know was how sick Ozzy really was during that final concert. He was running on pure determination and love for his fans. His heart was already failing. 17 days later, on July 22, 2025, Ozzy died of a heart attack at his home in England. He was surrounded by his family, Sharon, their children, and grandchildren. The news shocked the music world. Tributes poured in from musicians, fans, and celebrities. Elton John called him a true legend. Metallica said he was the godfather of heavy metal. His funeral was held at Villa Park, the same stadium where he had performed his final show. Thousands of fans lined the streets as his funeral procession passed by his childhood home and the Black Sabbath Bridge in Birmingham. Legacy more than music. Ozzy Osbourne changed popular music forever. Before Black Sabbath, rock music was mostly about love and happiness. Ozzy showed that music could be dark, heavy, and still meaningful. He influenced thousands of musicians. Metallica, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and countless other metal bands followed the path that Ozzy helped create. Without him, heavy metal music might not exist. But his influence went beyond music. The Osbournes' TV show changed reality television. It showed that celebrities were real people with real problems. Many of today's reality shows follow the format that Ozzy's family created. He also changed how we think about addiction and mental health. Ozzy was open about his struggles with drugs and alcohol. He showed that it was possible to get clean and stay sober. His honesty helped many people face their own problems. His battle with Parkinson's disease also raised awareness. By being public about his diagnosis, he helped reduce the stigma around the disease. The Parkinson's Foundation called him an inspiration to millions of people facing similar challenges. Closing reflection. The real Ozzy. The untold story of Ozzy Osbourne isn't about the crazy antics or the Prince of Darkness persona. It's about a working-class kid who never gave up on his dreams. Even when everything seemed impossible, he went from a slaughterhouse worker to one of the most famous musicians in the world. He struggled with addiction, but found the strength to get clean. He faced a devastating disease, but still performed for his fans one last time. The most shocking thing about Ozzy wasn't his stage shows or his wild behavior. It was his basic human decency. Despite all the fame and money, he remained a family man who loved his wife, children, and fans. His final concert was the perfect ending to an incredible life. He could have stayed home and lived quietly. Instead, he chose to give his fans one last moment of joy. That decision, to perform when his body was failing, showed the real Ozzy Osbourne. He was never really the Prince of Darkness. He was something better, a regular person who became extraordinary through talent, determination, and love for his art. That's the untold story that Black Sabbath fans will remember forever. The boy from Birmingham who cleaned blood in a slaughterhouse became the godfather of heavy metal. He proved that with enough passion and persistence, anyone can change their life and change the world. Ozzy Osbourne didn't just create music, he created hope. Hope that no matter where you come from or what obstacles you face, you can still achieve something amazing. That's a legacy that will last forever. In his own words from his final interview, "If it ends tomorrow, I can't complain. I've been all around the world, I've done good and I've done bad. But right now, I'm not ready to go anywhere." He was ready when the time came, surrounded by love and leaving behind a legacy that will inspire musicians and fans for generations to come.